Hold on. And 3, 2, 1.
It's Danny and Fred. They have a Crip Trip podcast.
Danny's in Minneapolis with Trista McGovern, SAMU, and Gabriel Freaque Rodreick. And they're hanging out at a backyard mini music festival.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Crip Trip podcast. I believe this is our second episode, and we are here in beautiful Minneapolis with an eclectic assortment of disabled artists and influencers. I'm going to let you all introduce yourselves. Maybe we'll start with SAMU.
Yeah, sure. Should I look to a camera or?
Sure.
Okay. Hi, my name is SAMU. I'm an online producer of assortments of media and also an advocate.
Awesome.
My name is Gabriel Rodreick. I'm a musician mainly, and then do a lot of different types of performance and organizing of people.
Awesome.
Drawing. I do too much.
I'm Trista, she, they. I'm a photographer and also model, disability advocate, and writer.
Awesome. And maybe for IDV, do you guys want to do a quick visual description of what you're wearing right now?
Okay, sure. I have my kufiya on with a bunch of gold pretty jewelry, black tank top, white plaid shorts, some kind of, I don't even know how to describe, military-esque boots. Combat boots.
Yeah, I sure wore mine.
And little gold frames with brown curly hair.
Short brown hair, trimmed beard. I'm wearing a Bahama Mama shirt. And some plaid, pink and blue capris with red Doc Martens.
I'm
sitting in a wheelchair. Also,
I'm wearing all black as per usual. I've been sweating a lot on this trip in the RV, and I've got a bald head and a nice beard. Also limbless. That's also a thing that could be worth noting.
Yeah. Also wearing all black per usual. Got brunette hair, scoliosis, and sitting on the bench.
scoliosis and sitting on the bench.
Not wearing my oxygen right now.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to talk to y'all about, intersectionality. And your art practices. So I think maybe we'll do another round the table, and I kind of want to pick your brain a little bit about how your art practice is currently manifesting, or how you're spreading advocacy and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So Trista, maybe we'll start with you. How has your photography developed over the years? You've definitely influenced me and are a big reason why I picked up photography last year.
I have been a photographer longer than I've been an advocate or a writer, and that has happened more in 2019. Since then, I was doing more work around disability and sexuality, and so that's why I became the subject, because I was like, if I'm going to talk about it, I should use myself as a model and
I'm very much
first
in that
perspective.
I'm very much in that position right now where we're Fred and I are doing some vulnerable film photography, and I'm like, if we want vulnerability from our subjects, we want to be able to pony up and show it ourselves.
Yeah, and I did build up the skills to photograph people in vulnerable ways, but as I started being a subject too, it showed that the more vulnerable you are, the more it gives other people permission to. So I just kept doing it more and more, and then I burnt out. So I've kind of taken a break. I've done some panels, and I've done workshops over the years too, on authenticity through vulnerability. But I might be dipping into modeling a bit more again, but not as hardcore as I was before.
You got to make it sustainable, right?
Yeah, and I tried telling myself that taking creative break, there isn't a time frame for that. It just has to be whatever I feel like doing next. And so I've gotten back more into being the photographer too. So that's where I'm at now. But a lot of it was hyper-focused around disability and sexuality, and just either or for anybody, because those things affect everybody. So
Yeah, and what was the kind of general response from able-bodied audiences for your work?
I expected there to be like some reaction, because when I started doing it in 2019, I didn't really see it anywhere. Maybe here and there, but it wasn't talked about. I'm like, they just feel like taboo subjects, and especially combined for a lot of people. So then able-bodied people just kind of were like, wow, I never think about this. I'm like, I know. That's why I did it.
Yeah.
And then disabled people were like, thank you for putting words to things that I couldn't, or thank you for talking about this. And it was like the first one that I did that kind of blew up. I expected a response, but I didn't expect it to be that big. So I was like, oh, like, I know this needs to be talked about, but apparently this really needs to be talked about, because people don't even, it's not even on their plate.
Yeah.
You're like their horizon even.
And in the Disability and Sexuality magazine, did Gabriel do a piece in that one too? I seem to remember you doing a series of spoken word and photography things as well.
For what? For what thing?
The Disability and Sexuality magazine?
Magazine?
Oh, your
My
book?
The book, yeah.
My book.
Yeah.
No, but I did photograph Gabe at one point.
Okay.
But
We had to pull the photos.
Yeah, the co-model, didn't want to be part of it anymore. So the project that I was going to do as photographer, photographing people in a similar way that I've modeled, that kind of has just been on pause. And I might be going back to that, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Depends on the participation level. But yeah, me and Gabe still kind of write about similar things.
Yeah.
So
Well, speaking of online reactions, SAMU, you do a lot of online, boosting of causes and sharing of art. Have you noticed, attitudes towards disabled art? Like, what do you see happening out there?
Oh, I can say that Instagram is like a hellscape. I don't know if y'all have personally experienced just like the brutalness of comments, and also I got my start in 2019, 2020 as well. And as soon as I got like a little glimmer of attention, I was like, oh, I'm not going to run with this and just do nothing about it. So that's kind of where advocacy, I say this a lot. A lot of people go to school for sociology.
Yeah.
So I was in a sociology class, thinking I was going to be a social worker. College didn't work out. But I was in the class and I was like, why are they talking about me? Why are they studying my life structure, my family structure and whatnot? And that kind of made me delve further into just advocacy more so than education. But over the years, I don't know what the shift necessarily was, but there seems to be a dominant shift of just more and more ableism. It felt like the more disabled people, of course, started speaking about it, it just became a bit more of a mess. But like the R slur is back just fully in comments, and people are finding new ways to even just like type it out. I don't know, like, anyway. So I've experienced a lot of negativity on the internet, unfortunately. And I know too, and I acknowledge this as a creator, I benefit a lot off of infantilization when it comes to my content. And unfortunately, as a creative, sometimes you get locked down into this box where it's like, oh, I should be feeding the algorithms, I should be feeding it. And that's kind of what driven me to this point now, where I actually just decided to take a bit of a huge step back because of the negativity, but also just the burnout of it all too. And with the TikTok especially, was like the one to shoot this to the moon, was just like the less efforted content seems to be like the most traction content. Whereas I would post like full on like educational, straight to camera facts, like call to actions, and you know, some of those do well, some of those don't. So I'd say I experienced a lot of positivity in a sense that got me to be here with everyone, so that's super cool. But also it seems to be on an incline of ableism in the past even years, so I would say.
Well, it's interesting because we kind of had what I'd like to call the disability renaissance, where like during COVID a lot of people ended up finding each other, and then there was that kind of mass proliferation of content. So like you're saying, I think it was more people are seeing disabled people out there, and now the ableism, you know, alongside is also increasing.
Oh yeah, it wasn't about like disability and sexuality, but just me posting anything, especially being a woman. TikTok is a terrible place for the comment section.
Well, and it's got that anonymous factor to it, where you know people's names aren't associated with
especially
it.
when it goes to like a different country. I'm like, the Frenchmen were ruthless.
Jesus.
Yeah, you saw the. Not good.
So, Gabriel, tell me a bit about, you know, trying to get a music career started. Have you always been a musician, and then you kind of pivoted?
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing. My family is very musical. My mom got me playing when I was 2. Started playing piano. And then I had my injury when I was 15. I have a C5 spinal cord injury. And it's been about 16 years since then. And yeah, I had to pivot from playing piano to singing and focusing on writing music rather than playing it, learning it. But yeah, I carried a lot of the knowledge that I learned the first 10, 15 years of my life, and took it over into life with spinal cord injury, and have been playing around the cities for 12 years.
How do you find touring?
Touring's hard.
Yeah. I'm 3 weeks in and I'm already after it.
Yeah, it's rough. I did a midnight circus on Friday night, and it was completely inaccessible. Had to roll through a field. The stage was like a portable thing that didn't have a ramp. Had 4 people lift me up and down. I was on the ramp, and I was on the stage, and I was like, Jesus Christ, I feel like I'm gonna fall off. So I still do that kind of stuff just for the like. It was a midnight circus. Like, of course I'm gonna go play it. You know, I'm not gonna.
It's hard to say no to opportunity.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
like,
and
especially as a disabled creator. You're
and
like, how many
I
of these am I gonna get? I gotta, make the most of these.
Yeah,
come by.
Totally. And I think I have the personality where I'm just like, I'm just gonna fucking do it. I don't care. But I know a lot of people with disabilities who, they don't have that. Like they don't, and I think that was when I started making more friends with people with disabilities, and I think people with spinal cord injuries, and specifically, there's so many obstacles for people who use wheelchairs to get into places, to get to places, and Galen Lee, who is a Duluth musician up north, has been doing a lot of work around the Midwest. Like, she won't play a show unless it has a stage or a ramp to the stage. So I've taken some influence from her, just like I'm being a little more intentional and a little more specific these days about like what shows am I doing and why am I doing them, and
using that platform and privilege once you get a bit of a following to use that as a mechanism for change. SAMU and Trista were talking about having a little bit of a creative shift and taking a step back. Have you had that moment in your career where you're like, I'm gonna reevaluate something about what I'm doing and pivot? It sounds like with being more intentional about what you're doing, you're kind of on that track.
talking to you.
No, you.
No, I was talking to Gabriel.
Oh, you're talking to me. Oh, no, okay, my bad.
That's how you find it.
I heard SAMU and I was
Where
like,
is it? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think I'm actually kind of coming out of that a little bit. I think I haven't been doing a ton of my own work like I would like to. I have done a little bit. Like I'm actually not currently working on the album, but was earlier this spring. I'm doing a lot of other people's work right now, to kind of keep me moving and creative. Yeah. But I've been starting to set some like deadlines for myself.
That's good. That's always good.
I think I'm ready to start making my own shit again and really dig in. I've learned a lot over the last 5 years, 6 years. And yeah, I think it's been really hard for me because I have a lot of stamina. I have a big engine to do a lot. But I'm realizing as I'm getting older, like my body can't keep up. You know, it's a body that I'm sort of stuck with in a lot of ways, and I've been grieving it a lot this last year, 2 years. You know, I've done a lot of grieving already, but I think this year I've been thinking a lot about how I think there's been this thing in the back of my brain that's like, oh, it'll eventually go back to normal. Like you'll get your body back someday.
Yeah.
And I've never really believed that, but it's been in the back of my head, like, oh, we'll get there.
Yeah.
And this year I'm grieving that. I'm like, that's not true.
The constantly changing capacity level.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I'm battling this like mind-body capacity discrepancy. Like my mind is fucking ready to go all the time, and then my body's just like, no, dude,
Take a minute.
you need to stop. And it's infuriating and it's tough, but the more I lean into it, the more I feel better about it. I'm starting to like, I know what I need more, so that makes me feel like I can dive back into my work and go my own pace. You know?
Yeah. So, you know, I'm obsessed with this, you know, concept of Crip elders, right? And, you know, passing on knowledge to future disabled people, and just like, you know, bringing narratives like mourning, capacity loss, and, you know, changing expectations. You know, I do want to talk a bit about art and activism. Do you guys find yourself taking kind of mentorship roles at this point? Or you know, liaising with community in ways where you're trying to pass things along?
Yeah, I think there's as like a disabled artist or activism way, or what do you mean?
As artists. Yeah.
Yeah, I think with reaching like a burnout point, and lowered capacity more and more over the years, as I get older, the more I'm like, I put my all into like my book, and I'm like, a lot of things that I have to say, I'm like, if people would just read the thing, it's still that. Like, and I think I feel more ready to like kind of pass the torch in a way, and I'll do some other things, but there are some people in Minneapolis too that I'm like, I really would like to help them with their art and things like that. And in the meantime, I've used my platform as like more of an activist space. And I was way more, I was more involved, more consistently, but with activism and art kind of reached a burnout point. I'm like being pretty involved in the uprising kind of took it out of a lot of people.
And for context, what's the uprising?
George Floyd.
George Floyd, 2020.
Yeah.
It was a lot for everybody, but especially everybody that was very involved and in support of. It still feels like everybody's kind of tired.
Yeah.
But there's so much to do still. And I love Minneapolis for being pretty progressive in its pockets. There are plenty of pockets that are
I come from a
like
similar
like
city.
our mayor. Is just frustrating to say the least.
Yeah.
Boy, Mayor Jacob Fry.
Yeah, just I have nothing to
So
say.
with activist burnout, you know, what did you notice about the uprising, you called it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, what did you notice about the disability community at kind of the intersection of George Floyd? Did you find them aggregating as well?
It was tricky with it being before vaccines for COVID, even. And so there was a lot of talk about both things, and I think it was just a really important time of conversation. And I know I still I took a lot of risks with COVID to be part of things that were important. So
Yeah, I think that was a really challenging time for me because I didn't know what COVID was, and I also use a wheelchair, so it was hard to be out there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think what I sort of figured out was everybody's got a different role.
yeah.
And that, I think that's, in a lot of ways, that's what intersectionality is about. You find where you fit and where you can be a part of it. And because I felt a lot of guilt. I felt a lot of shame about my body, because I couldn't get out with everybody, and I wanted to, but I think when I started to realize that, I was like, oh yeah, we all have a role. And I ended up just having a lot of conversations in my backyard with people, just let's talk about it, because we need to do that. Yeah.
And did you find that affected your art as well? You know, once you synthesize that, the way that, you know, a lot of disabled people can contribute to movements is through art and culture building.
Yeah.
You know, did that start to bleed into your work?
I don't know. I feel like I haven't made a lot of stuff over the last 4 years.
I think mostly start because I built my platform right before that, and it was growing. I've just consistently tried to use it for mutual aid and sharing important news that was more relevant than what was on some of the news, or even Star Tribune drops the ball a lot and things like that. So
Do you want to talk a little bit about what you mean by mutual aid?
Community care, raising funds for people that need it, especially it's been a really hard time with the economy and just a lot of harm happening too. But what about you, Sam?
I mean, I relate a lot. I think the thing with lockdown especially, just we promoted this version of activism that was, was now digital. That was something, I mean, we had Twitter and stuff back in 2015 and 2016, and that's kind of when I tuned in more into Black Lives Matter and understanding what Indigenous people have been telling us for centuries, and then also it's just the lived experience. So I think it would be hard for me to be a creative on the internet or be producing any sort of art without it having some sort of advocate undertone. I think that would, for one, be a misuse of my platform, kind of like you said, and if that platform building made it really easy. And I think the thing with TikTok especially just made it a lot more eyes went on it. So I kind of just, I don't know. I don't really know how to answer that question because it's kind of, I posted who I was, what I felt needed to be shared with the community, or how, I'm not always going to be an educator, but if I had the energy to be an educator, I was an educator that day. So I think it's been it's always gonna stay. And I'm an aspiring musician as well. So that was my version of performing too, was also just putting out little songs or whatnot on the internet. And luckily with the feed, you can kind of just pick and choose. But I always made sure that activism stays a significant part of my art. And also that's where a lot of the mourning and the sadness comes from too, when I make my own art too. So
Yeah. I mean, I just kind of want to give the audience a general definition of what intersectionality is, right? It's the study of compounding identities, so your gender identity, your racial identity, and how that has specific outcomes for, privilege or disadvantage, right? So it's important that, we as creatives are constantly being cognizant. This is something I think about when I'm casting, a documentary, that we're getting a varied amount of perspectives, right? With mixed results, mostly due to timing and route. But, we tried to get as many perspectives as we could possibly fit along the trip. So it's something that once you learn about it, you're constantly trying to integrate it into your practice. I am trying to give voices to the platforms to people who are, angry with the systems, because these are the ones that are, most invisibilized by the effects of like institutionalization. I think a lot about how different my life would be is if I was living in foster care. Right, and I didn't have mechanisms to, or family to insulate me from, governmental pressure trying to institutionalize me. And once you start looking at the world in that way, you feel a sense of responsibility creating anything about a certain community to kind of share those diverse experiences. Do you guys have any specific anecdotes about how you've integrated intersectionality in your practice?
I mean, I exist on the internet. So I integrated intersectionality just existing. But I mean, I always talk about the different marginalized groups I'm a part of and always uplifting those people. I think, like I said earlier, some days I can choose to be an educator, sometimes I'm not, but I'll forever be an educator with or without my consent, if that makes sense.
Right.
So my presence will always be, and especially now with the platform, will be a beacon of intersectionality and just evidence of it and history of it. So I'm trying, especially to not put too much pressure on myself, to feel like I need to be existing perfectly. As well, but there's my piece.
Yeah, I mean, I relate with all of those things. I try to tell people that my intersectional things, but usually people are can pick up on it. I'm like very queer, very disabled woman. She, they, and that is that does take a lot of energy to manage people's reactions, because sometimes I feel kind of owned by the public, like in real life and on the internet. But then I also know that I do have a lot of privilege, so try to platform other people with the platform that I have. So I'm like, what else am I going to use it for? I don't want to just talk about myself.
And it feels like a big responsibility too, right?
I don't know if it feels like a big responsibility. It feels like common sense to me. Like people should be doing that depending on what they talk about. Like Gabe was saying, like where do you affect things with what's around you, or like what you have access to. And so I kind of just try to do what I can where I am, and a lot of that has been online, and then some of it is in person too.
Well, it's been good to commiserate with fellow artists about stuff that I've had floating in the back of my head, but you guys really gave voice to today. So I don't feel as, isolated in my creative practices, especially, the weight of having a platform and, trying to use it responsibly.
Yeah. The waves of creating and
exactly, and how demanding it is, and even aging with a disability and trying to manage your own expectations of yourself. It's a lot, and I'm just glad we have community, and you guys have such a beautiful one here in Minneapolis. So, thanks for taking the time to chat with me.
Watch on AMI-TV or stream for free on AMI+.
TVO, Media Education Group. Catapult Pictures. Looking for more Crip Trip? Stream the series now on AMI+.